Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and thanks for joining me during today's video. I will be talking a little bit about how I transitioned from the Philippines, which is my home country. I was born and raised there, and I moved to the US last year to pursue the USMLEs and of course have the end goal of becoming a resident physician here. So yes, I'm currently in the US and I will be talking more about my experience so far. Oh, and I'm also going to be answering some questions that I got on Instagram for this video. I have gotten a couple of them, and I'm only going to answer a few just because I feel like I don't want this to be as lengthy and boring. I want to minimize that as much as possible, but if ever I don't get to your question, my DMs are always open and so is my email, so I'll just leave my information in the description box and feel free to reach out to me because I love it when you guys ask me questions and stuff like that. It'll just take time, but eventually I will get to answering your questions and things like that, or if you just want to say hi. A little bit of a backstory. I did all my medical education in the Philippines. I was did my pre-med there and went to med school in the Philippines, and then I had 2 years of training. So what happens, or the way it works in the Philippines, is that our 4th year, or our last year of medical school, is dedicated to our junior internship, or is also known as clerkship, where we rotate for a full year in all the departments. So we go through surgery, pedia, dermatology, internal medicine, OBGYN, all those for an entire year, as well as infectious diseases rotation, a psych rotation, and a mental institution. So we pretty much covered everything during that year. And as junior interns or clerks, we sort of started mastering history taking and doing physical examinations on patients, and we try to monitor vital signs around the wards, and our schedule would usually be for the entire week, we would have almost 100 hours of working at the hospital. So we would have 36-hour shifts, and then the next day would be about maybe 8 to 10 hours of working, and the day after that would be another 36 hours. So there was a lot of work that had to get done on our last year of medical school. And then on the 5th year, which is called our senior internship, it's pretty much the same, but we have more responsibility, as since we're not in medical school anymore, we're part of the workforce almost, but we're working directly with residents. So I understand that it's different here in the US. When you say intern year or internship, it sort of overlaps with your first year as a resident. But technically in the Philippines, we have 2 years of training in the hospital, which I think is great because we have exposure. We get to scrub in during ORs, and we do a lot of hands-on work, like drawing blood and doing IV insertion and everything like that. So we're pretty hands-on and we do get involved. So skills-wise, I feel like training in the Philippines and getting our medical education there, I like to say, have an advantage because of that. After my 5th year, which is my senior internship, and I had already gotten my diploma before that on after my 4th year of medical school. And I've always known that I wanted to practice in the US just because I felt like there was a broader number of choices when it came to opportunities, and I felt like work environment wise, I feel like I would fit in more. And this is just, obviously I'm letting you know what I feel personally. I'm not trying to generalize or judge the healthcare system in the Philippines, but I am just talking about what I want and what I've always planned on doing and what I've always wanted to have or be exposed to. So I feel like I've already set in my mind, even when I was in med school, that I've always wanted to come to the US and train in order to become a physician here. I had moved to the US early last year, and I had done everything on my own. So note that I had come here without any connection. So I know a lot of people come here and they have family, usually connections to the hospitals, and then they can easily get observerships and have someone to mentor them. And I know a lot of people also live with their families who are already here in the US. But with me, I feel like I had to start from scratch. And I'm not complaining, I'm just putting this out there because I feel like it really helped me grow in so many ways, and I am innately independent, so I feel like it was a challenge for me. So I came here last year and I got my own apartment. And if you're Asian or if you're Filipino like me, you know it's taboo to kind of live, away from your family, or especially like since normally you live with your family up until the time that you're married, or even after you get married, things like that. There's a cultural aspect to it. But me, I've always wanted to kind of venture out there and like find things out for myself and learn things on my own. And so that's what I did. I am lucky because my mom let me, even though it's not something that is common in our culture. So I got my own apartment, paid for everything. I am supporting myself. And so I had paid for everything. Did not have all my family is, back in the Philippines, and my friends are there as well. And so I had moved here and just sort of like started building my life, like a life for myself little by little. So it was the small things, like I had to go grocery shopping on my own, because like in the Philippines you have all this help around you. You have your family to support you, you have people to go grocery shopping with or do chores with, but everything is so different in America, so you're having to do everything on your own. So that was new to me. It was kind of scary at first, but in a good way, because I felt like I was outside my comfort zone, and this was something that I was eventually going to have to learn to do anyway, so why not start now? I had moved in to my own apartment. I stayed in like a college apartment because it's usually cheaper, so I had roommates, and they weren't really the easiest to deal with. So I think some of the things I struggled with, apart from what I already had mentioned, was, aside from feeling lonely and kind of isolated, I think I was also worried that, if things weren't going to work out here in the US, what was I going to do? Was I going to go back to the Philippines? Was I going to do this and that? There were just so many questions in my head. And I for sure will say that this isn't an easy process. So once you step into it and decide that you want to do this, you have to make sure you're all in, because there will be some bumps that you end up hitting and some lulls, to the point where you just feel like maybe I should just go back to my home country and start over again, or go and serve as a physician back home, which is fine. That's completely up to you. But personally, I just feel like I've already invested so much in this process and it's what I've always wanted. Why would I stop here? In case something had happened, I would just keep going. So in case you haven't seen in my previous video on my Step 2 CS experience, I did have a hard time processing that failure. I definitely, tried to talk myself into just, constantly working hard and not giving up, because it's hard not to feel that way, especially when you're away from, your family and your friends, and you're in an unfamiliar, or foreign country. It's unfamiliar territory. So you feel less comfortable and less confident in making certain decisions when you're not physically close to the people you love. And so self-doubt does tend to seep in, which is so normal. Don't beat yourself up over it. But yeah, I guess with me, I just decided that I was going to keep doing this, and going back to the Philippines and practicing there wasn't an option, because I already knew what I wanted. And I was sure that this is everything that I wanted. So I was going to give my everything to make sure I got to where I wanted to be. I'm going to start answering some questions that you guys had sent in through Instagram. One of the questions I got was from Exploring This Universe. So, hey, I am a medical student in second year, or MS2, in the Philippines. I aspire to be a surgical resident. Advice, or like any advice? I had actually gotten a chance, luckily, to observe or to participate in observerships in the surgical field here in the US, just because I wanted to get, a feel of what it was going to be like. As an IMG, people always say that, oh, you're not from the US, therefore you're going to have such a hard time getting to surgery. I think surgery is competitive anywhere in the world anyways, so don't listen to the naysayers, especially when they say you're not from here. It's going to be difficult for you to get a spot in surgery if you do want to pursue like general surgery or plastic surgery or whatever subspecialty. But honestly, just go for it. If you really want it, just go for it. It's not up to the people around you who have seen IMGs kind of like not get the spot and get the spot. It varies, and it's really up to you. If you really want it, I feel like it's not impossible. So go for it. I've had a lot of people tell me, oh, you're not from here, You're a foreign medical graduate, therefore it's going to be really difficult for you to get a spot. I admit that was kind of like hard to hear at first, but I got used to it. And it's so easy for people to judge you just because you're not from the US. But I feel like we have a lot to offer. And the fact that we're even here in the first place means that we're very driven, we're willing to work hard, and we're very resilient. So those 3 traits are super important to have in your medicine. So whether it's surgery that you want to pursue, or family medicine, or internal medicine, don't listen to the naysayers, just go for it. If you're wanting to pursue surgery for residency here, I would say that make sure that that's what you really want. And this goes for any other specialty that you're interested in pursuing for the USMLE or the residency here in the States, just because it entails a lot of work, as you already might know. And I guess my next one would be to build connections. I have been given this advice before that sometimes it's important who you know and not what you know. And luckily, I was able to experience observerships in the surgery department with around 4 physicians here in the US, and it's amazing. Like the experiences that I've had with the physicians here were with mostly neurosurgeons, and I also had an experience with an orthopedic surgeon that I rotated with. Yeah, it was mostly neuro and orthopedic surgery, and also with a general surgeon. And I was lucky, maybe, because the attendings that I rotated with were very nice. They were very accommodating, and they were more than willing to teach. So my takeaway from this is to find a way to observe with a physician first, just so you kind of get the feel of it. If you want to do surgery, I understand that surgery, the setup is different in most countries, or like in all other countries. If you could compare between the Philippines and the US, then maybe that's something to keep in mind. Other than that, I feel like your focus would have to be to build connections with surgeons who are willing to allow you to shadow, or who are willing to mentor you, which I think is really important. So maybe, start with that first. So another question I got was, any advice to aspiring Filipino med students who also dream of doing residency abroad? The main, idea behind pursuing residency abroad is to make sure that you are 100%, like I mentioned earlier, 100% all in. Because this isn't something that you just do on a whim. It's something that takes a lot of planning, and even though you're at a certain stage, you're still trying to figure out your plans while you're in the middle of a certain stage in your life. And it has to be something that you really want. Also know that it's not impossible. Like I keep saying in this video, I hate to sound like such a broken record, but I know it's hard to, and it's very intimidating to go to another country and, figure out what exams you're going to take just to get licensed in a different country, and you're practicing around people from a different culture, and everything's so new. But I like to think that that's part of the experience. That's personally what excites me, because everything is so new. And at the same time, nothing is the same every single day. And I feel like I love the career so much that I am in, and the journey that I'm trying to pursue. But also know that it's not going to be something that is, something that's pleasant, or you expect happiness from it 24/7. There are going to be hardships along the way, trust me. I've kind of already had my fill of it this past year. But yeah, it's part of the process. And I would say stick to a plan, but also be open for changes. I keep saying this. I've also said this in my past videos, especially when I talked about my Step 2 CS experience. There will be a lot of changes that can frustrate you in the process, but be open to them. It's good to have a support system that will keep you grounded throughout this entire thing, because it's easy to get lost, and it's very easy to fall in this like rabbit hole of, anxiety, and, you have so many questions in your head. But like I keep saying, it's not going to last forever. And it's honestly going to help you grow more as a person as you get past these challenges that you're going to encounter during the USMLE. Apart from it being very difficult, just know that it's very doable. I think there will be a lot of people who will say you cannot do certain things, and it's easy to absorb all of that negativity. But I would say push that aside and stick to what you want for yourself, because they're not going to be the ones that are in your position 5-10 years from now. It's really all about you. So this journey is about you, is basically what I'm saying. So just go for it. If you want to pursue the USMLEs, 100% go for it. All right, so another question I got was, I just want to know the process or steps on how you're taking the USMLE right now. So I have a video on the Step 2 CS USMLE, my experience. I failed it the first time, and then I had to take it a second time and I passed it. So if you're interested, I'll leave a link below on like how I handled that. But right now I am preparing for Step 1. Luckily, as international medical graduates or foreign medical graduates, we have the liberty of choosing which exam to take first among Step 1, Step 2 CK, and Step 2 CS. So I took Step 2 CS as my first exam, just because I felt like it was easier to get out of the way compared to USMLE, rather compared to Step 1, because I feel like it's a lengthier process. So I did take that first. And then now I'm studying for Step 1. With regards to the process and the steps, first of all, you have to apply for this exam, and your school has to approve your application. I had it in mind, like when I wanted to take the exam, but I didn't book it until like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, just because I wanted to make sure that I was comfortable enough to book a date. So now that I'm comfortable enough, I did book a date. And with regards to the process, so after booking, I would say plan. Planning is so important. Again, I talked about my current experience with Step 1. I haven't taken the exam yet, but I did kind of film a video about where I am right now in terms of study schedule and what resources I use. I'll leave a link in the description as well if you want to check a more detailed description of that. But basically, I had to make sure that I planned first, just because it's so difficult to get into this Step 1 studying process without knowing what you're going to do and what you want to achieve. So I took a lot of time planning what I wanted, or how to approach this this exam. And only now am I getting comfortable, and it's been months since I've started studying for Step 1. And once you figured out a schedule, that's when you figure out what you're going to do for pre-dedicated and what you're going to do for your dedicated period of studying. And the difference between these two are dedicated would be more like leading up to your test date, and pre-dedicated would be, this is where you try to really understand the concepts and absorb all the important information, and then going into dedicated, you're more comfortable with the resources that you're using and also having to just polish the concepts that you already know. So I would say study schedule first, and then figure out which resources you want to focus on. Don't overwhelm yourself with too much, because it's not going to be doable anyway to cover or to read all the resources out there. So many. And then another one would be to figure out what your goal test date is, or at least like the month. You don't have to know the exact day, but at least the month, and then take it from there. Also, in terms of like the process and steps, don't be scared to ask questions. Don't be scared to like reach out to people who already have taken the exam, who are currently in the same situation as you. There's no way you can do this alone. So reach out, research, go to like different forums. It's nice to learn from each other. And another question I got was, are you already graduated from med school? If yes, since when? So yes, as I mentioned earlier, I've already graduated medical school. I graduated in 2017, and that was my 4th year, and I had my 1-year training, 5th year. This is after medical school, obviously. That's why they call it postgraduate internship. I already had my diploma then, but we're required to do 1 more year of training before residency. So that's what I did. I did my 5th year. Another question, it says, what steps did you take in order to qualify for USMLE, given that you graduated medical school from the Philippines? It's not so much as like steps. I think with the USMLE process, they just require that you graduate from medical school and that your school is accredited by the list that they have, that is approved by that by that testing body. Steps to qualify, I feel like anybody is qualified as long as you fulfill the requirements of ECFMG prior to applying. So I know this whole ECFMG process can be very daunting, so make sure you take your time trying to figure out what requirements are needed, what to fill out. Again, reach out for help if you're not confused. I was doing this like on my own, and I had started this journey from scratch. So I know what you're going through. I know what you feel like. Don't feel rushed. Don't feel pressured just because you're going to be stressing yourself out even more than it already is. So yeah. I guess like I just graduated from medical school and had like 2 years of training. That's my background at least. Could be different for other people, but yeah, I did qualify to apply for the USMLEs given my background. Yeah, that's all the questions I'm going to be answering for now, just because I don't want this video to be too lengthy. But I will conclude by saying my transition from the Philippines to living here, especially on my own, was very daunting, was very scary. I did feel like I was building a life for myself or on my own, which I loved because I was doing all the things that I usually would do with support around. And don't get me wrong, it's always lovely to have support around, especially when you have your family, your friends to help you out. But I guess in a way I learned the hard way, and I don't regret a single thing, just because I feel like I'm a lot tougher now, and I'm even, I guess, more motivated to get to where I set myself to be in the first place. And yeah, if you're currently not in the US and you're a foreign medical graduate, know that it's really going to be challenging to figure things out and to do this, but it's 100% not impossible. I think that's the main takeaway of this video and why I wanted to make it in the first place, because I could probably go on and on and on and on and on about a more detailed description or like experience about what I went through in the past year, but that would be too lengthy and probably even too boring. But I did go through a number of significant lows last year, and I figured it out with a lot of love and support, even from my loved ones at a distance. And yeah, this whole process is going to build character for sure. But yeah, if there are any other questions or things that you wanted me to cover that I didn't cover in this video, I'm sorry, but you can, like I said, you can always reach out to me and or say hi. That's always nice. But yeah, hopefully I can catch you again in my next video, and I hope you enjoyed and learned something today. Bye.